Welcome to American Reacts. In this video, we're going to be reacting to 12 things not to do in Paris by a local. Let's see if my uncultured, tiny American brain can comprehend the Paris lifestyle. Let's get into it.
I'm French, and today I'm gonna tell you 12 things you should never do in Paris. The first one is to grab food near a major monument. If you've just visited the Eiffel Tower or the Louvre, do not eat in the neighborhood. The restaurants there tend to be terrible, with awful food, terrible service, and all that for a very, very expensive price. All of this
That's weird. I would expect there to be good food. Obviously, I would expect the prices to be higher in such a popular area, but I would still expect the food there to be good.
places have something in common is that they cater to tourists who will only go there once and then never come again. So they do not care about you or giving you good food. What you should do instead is
But even then, like, why would you not want to give good food and then have them go back to their country and say, well, we were at the Eiffel Tower, we went to this one place and it was really good, you should go there? It seems counterintuitive, in my humble opinion.
for 15 minutes away from the major monument and try to find a place that has a lot of locals in it. So personally, when I see a restaurant that has only signs in English, I tend to be a bit suspicious because it's a sign that locals don't actually go to this place. And this also works when you're doing your research for restaurants. Try to use the English version of French-speaking websites like The Fooding. With this, you'll actually find places locals actually go to, and you'll increase your chances of eating delicious French food.
But I would say so as well, right? If you're gonna go to a place like France, I think being around the locals would really be the best places to go, rather than like the high touristy areas. I mean, the same goes for me even in my state. I live in Alaska, and we've got a lot of tourism. I try to avoid going to certain places in the state at certain times a year just because it's flooded with tourists.
When in doubt, just grab a bite at a bakery, but don't go too.
And I'm the type of person, like, I don't want to do the exact same thing that everybody else is doing. So, like, I think finding a nice little hole in the wall, a nice little spot that's, away from the real high traffic area would really be the thing to do.
Any bakery. You see, in France, we take when in doubt, go to, and you'll increase your chances of eating delicious French food. When in doubt, just grab a bite at a bakery, but don't go to any bakery. You see, in France, we take bakeries very, very seriously. There's even laws regulating them. And you're only allowed to call yourself a boulangerie, which is the French word for bakery, if and only if you fully make your bread from scratch. The places that don't make their own bread are just called pain, which means bread. So going to a boulangerie will guarantee you good bread and a good sandwich, which in Paris tends to cost between 4 and 6 euros. But when it comes to croissants and pastries, getting a good one actually gets a tiny bit more complicated.
Did she just say croissant? The only last time I had a croissant was when I had a croissant sandwich from Burger King, the most authentic version of a croissant there is.
Unless you know what I'm about to tell you. Not all bakeries make their croissants and pastries. Sometimes it's just frozen food, and we do not want that. So bakeries do have to show you that they're using frozen food by just putting a little star next to the name of the pastry you're buying. But you should learn how to recognize a good pastry. If the bakery you're in has a very wide offering of pastries that all look the same, they're all beautiful and exactly even, then it's definitely suspicious and you should run away. So most people who live in Paris, me included, have their own bakery that's close to their home.
That would make sense because I could see seeing the same style of pastry with the same design, but having its imperfections, would you be able to tell, like, oh, okay, this is handcrafted, this was made today, or this was made here, rather than having these perfect, symmetrical, every little pastry looks exactly the same, which is probably something made in like a factory.
Usually go to for bread and pastries. And one sure way to find that for you is to look for long lines of locals in the morning and at lunchtime. And you should also stay in the right local areas to make sure you're close to the good food. And one big mistake I see people making is either staying in the super touristy center or super far away. So for all the reasons I told you before, we don't want to be staying only in the tourist centers next to the major monuments. If you're doing that, I feel you really miss out on what makes Paris so unique, which is the local life, all the people who live here, and of course the delicious food. Also, if you stay in local areas, you're just gonna discover random local hidden gems that are super cool and not mentioned in any blog or guide or YouTube. Everyone has their favorite local areas, but
Yeah, I feel like I just walk around, right? Walk around what looks good. Obviously, like she's saying, right? Try to avoid the places with a bunch of English letters. Um, but I think walking around, get away from, the monuments, because further you get away, the more local spots you're gonna get into, and then just wander into a place. Look. Well, does that look good? Maybe get something, try it out, move along.
A few of my personal favorites are the 20th and the 17th for local life and the neighborhood feeling. I also like the 11th and the part of the 10th that's next to the Canal Saint-Martin. They're pretty cool for going out, they have a lot of bars and restaurants, and I used to live there back in the day. I sometimes see people staying super far away, like really, really far away. It's not always cheaper, and I personally believe you should try getting a smaller place in a local area instead. Every person who lives in the Paris area will tell you that taking the commuter train called RER every single day is not fun. And you'll also miss out on my favorite thing.
Not fun. I thought, Europeans are always saying to us Americans, right, who, oh, we only have cars and there's no sidewalks, and that the European public transportation is superior. So it's a little surprising to me to hear that riding the train is not fun.
To do in Paris, which is walking around. If you're visiting Paris and you're not walking around endlessly to discover the city, you are missing out. It's really super.
Yeah, in a place, places like these old cities where, they were they've been around since before the car. The roads are narrow, everything it's walkable, right? Whereas in America, we grew up with the car. Our cities, our roads, everything is built around having a car. So everything's wider. There's less sidewalks. It's just the norm here, whereas there, it's the norm to walk around. And I think that's unique. I like that part about it. I don't like when Europeans try to tell us we need to be more like that, because America is not Europe and Europe is not America. It goes both ways. And I think walkable cities like this really adds that extra bit of uniqueness to European cities.
Enjoyable to walk in Paris because the architecture is so beautiful and everything is so dense, so there's a lot to see. And also for my American
French ducks
friends who love driving in cars, just know that it's the worst way to move around because Paris is such a big city and there's a lot of traffic jams. So
that makes sense. Like I said, right? You got
just
all
know
these
that
narrow
it's the
streets.
worst way to move around because Paris is such.
You got all these narrow streets. I would assume this is considered a very wide street for France. Yeah, these old cities that around 1300s, 1400s, they're made for walking. Walk, experience that part of it. Rent a bike. I'm sure there's plenty of bike rentals. Get a scooter, scoot around the city. But I can see, like, going to a place like this, I would never. I don't think I would even rent a car. Right? You would just, maybe if you're gonna plan to go out, maybe rent a car for a day or two to go to the countryside. But if you're gonna be staying in the city, makes no sense to rent a car or try to go or move around by car at all.
Such a big city and there's a lot of traffic jams, so it's actually way faster to take the metro. And I'd personally only take a taxi or Uber if I'm coming from the airport and
Plus, I want to experience the superior public transportation that the Europeans are always talking about. So I would be getting on the train and stuff like that.
way faster to take the metro. And I'd personally only take a taxi or Uber if I'm coming from the airport and I have a lot of luggage, because a lot of metro stations don't have elevators and I don't want to be carrying my luggage up the stairs. Actually, none of the people I know who live in Paris own a car, and I don't see why you should need one. Another thing you should avoid doing in Paris is
Yeah, see, if the locals can get around just fine, there's no sense in getting a car.
not speaking a word of French. And if you have to only know one word, let it be bonjour. It's super important to say hello to people.
No. English is the world language. I'm gonna go there and speak English, okay? They know English, right? So let's not pretend like they don't know English and can't talk back in English. And I'm just joking, right? I think obviously it would be the best to learn a few French words, put some effort in, and just try to have a good time and be respectful and friendly, and try to speak to them in their language, even if you think you sound funny. I think people love to see people making an effort at the end of the day.
People when you start speaking to them. More on that in the next section. You can get away with just saying bonjour and then speaking English. A lot of people in Paris speak English. If people don't speak English, I recommend just being patient with them and using Google Translate. But if you really want to have a good experience, you should absolutely learn a bit of French beforehand. And for that, I recommend that you try today's sponsor, Lingoda. Lingoda is a language learning and make you start speaking for an additional 20 euros off. So I was telling you that saying bonjour to people, or even hello if you don't remember it, is super, super important. Different countries
Bonjour. That's how I would say it.
have different ways to be polite. And in
Bonjour.
France, basic politeness like saying hello and thank you is super, super important. If you're, for example, asking for directions, starting your sentence with a bonjour will re-guarantee you a way friendlier response than
Bonjour. Or you could just say, hey, where the hell am I? I'm just joking. But I get what she's saying, right? Obviously, take her advice. If you're going to her country, I think she would know that using their language to start the conversation, you're going to get a friendlier response.
just asking for it directly. Another way you can accidentally be rude is by being super loud in places where you should be quiet, like in the train, for example. I know because I tend to speak very loud myself. People will actually shush you if you're being too loud. And also if you're very loud and don't speak French, people might actually think you're yelling at them. This makes me think of a very awkward interaction I had at the bakery. So, you know, my local baker doesn't speak English, obviously. And there was this American lady who was asking for something in English. And instead of just understanding that my baker didn't speak English, she just repeated it louder and louder and louder until I had to intervene because my baker was really scared that she was getting
That does sound like something an American would do.
yelled at and not understanding what was going on. And when I intervened, I noticed that the American lady was actually just asking for coffee, and she didn't understand why she got this tiny, tiny European coffee. And that's a very common mistake people tend to make. So when you ask for coffee in France, you'll get the tiny European coffee, you'll get the espresso. If you're like me and you prefer your coffee to come in a big cup like this,
No. See, that's an espresso shot, right? When you get your coffee, you get like 6 of those in one cup. You know, it's like get 6 of those in a 16-ounce cup, and then that's a coffee.
the tiny European coffee, you'll get the espresso. If you're like me and you prefer your coffee to come in a big cup like this one, you should
One shot is not enough. I'm not even a coffee drinker. And like if I'm gonna get coffee, I want to feel the jitters, so I get like 6 shots.
be going to an actual coffee shop where you can have filtered coffee or American style coffee. And another thing you should not do in Paris, and a sure way to have Parisians hate you, is not being aware of your surroundings. So Paris is really, really dense and there's not a lot of personal space. So if you're stopped in the middle of the road and you're, let's say, blocking the sidewalk or the metro, people will get frustrated at you. Paris is a city where people actually live in, so we have to go to work, we have to take the metro, we have to be on time for job interviews and that type of stuff. And it tends to be, we have to take the Paris is a city where people actually live in, so we have to go to work.
I mean, what other cities do people not actually live in? Like, right? Like, what's the parallel there? I wonder what city she's meaning. Like, right? Like, if people live in the city, they live in the city. There's people there. I don't get that.
Will get frustrated at you. Paris is a city where people actually live in, so we have to go to work, we have to take the metro, we have
Isn't that every city, right? If you live in the city, you have to go to work. You have to, like, if you don't have your own transportation, you have to use a city transportation.
to be on time for job interviews and that type of stuff.
And I think anywhere where you're gonna go to a job interview, you would have to be on time for the job interview. What place allows you to be late for a job interview?
And it tends to be sometimes
I don't think this is just a Paris thing, you know, in my small, uncultured American opinion.
a bit frustrating when you live in a touristy area and people are just blocking the way. So remember, Paris is a big city, and even though it's really safe, being a
And I think it's just common courtesy, right? If you're gonna be standing there on your phone, scoot over to the side. Don't block the way, right? Like, don't be entitled. You know, there's people around you. Be courteous.
aware of your surroundings and avoid having your bags open and your valuables out is most of the time the only thing you need to prevent you from getting robbed.
And that's wild, right? Like I've never had a time where obviously you keep your bag close to you, but I've never once in my life been worried about being pickpocketed.
But overall, you shouldn't worry too much when you're traveling to Paris. And you should absolutely not overpack your schedule. I just really recommend you just embrace the lifestyle, just enjoy the city, walk around, spend hours eating with the people you love, sit at a cafe and people watch, or picnic in a park. Your trip to Paris should not be an endless to-do list of things to see, because it's really a city you experience instead of just ticking the boxes. And by
Was that a croissant?
list of things to see, because it's
That's a croissant right there if I ever seen one.
City you experience instead of just ticking the boxes. And by the way, if you're in a rush, do not go to a sit-down restaurant, especially if it's outside of normal eating hours. French service is known to be slow because we want it to be slow. We want to actually enjoy being in the restaurant and we don't want to be rushed. Even
I don't know. I think that's a little silly to say like, oh, this is France. We want it to be slow, so this is how things are here. Where I feel like if you go to a sit down restaurant, just about anywhere, it's gonna be slower service. Um, that's the whole point, right? That's why fast food is fast food. You expect to get your food fast, and if you wanting to sit down and speak and have a conversation with the people that you're with, you would go to a sit down restaurant where the service is slower because the quality of the food is better and it takes longer to cook and prepare quality food. Um, I don't think this is just like a French thing, in my opinion.
restaurant, especially if it's outside of normal eating hours. French service is known to be slow because we want it to be slow. We want to actually enjoy being in the restaurant and we don't want to be rushed.
I think anybody that goes to a sit down restaurant is there because they want to enjoy the experience and not rush. I don't think this is a culturally French thing.
Even midday work lunches will take around 45 minutes to an hour if you're at a sit-down restaurant. Also, don't go to a restaurant right before closing time.
I mean, that sounds about anywhere, right? You go to a restaurant, it's going to be 45 minutes to an hour, right? You're not grabbing a quick lunch, right? There's obviously places in the U.S. and maybe it's not the same there, where it's a sit down place, but they have things kind of prepped and ready to go for people that attend lunch there. So maybe that's what she's speaking on.
45 minutes to an hour if you're at a sit-down restaurant. Also, don't go to a restaurant right before closing time because they usually tend to stop serving people around 30 minutes before closing time. Closing time is the time they actually close the gates. Overall, I found that people who tend to be very disappointed by Paris are people who come with very
Anybody who goes to a restaurant and like right before closing time, eh, your restaurant privileges need to be taken from you. That's a joke.
very high expectations. And there's so many movies that paint a perfect who come with very, very high expectations. And there's so many movies that paint a perfect romantic image of Paris, like Emily in Paris, Amélie, or even my favorite movie about France ever, which is Ratatouille, which is actually about a rat cooking French food. So pretty close to what happened in some Paris restaurants. Paris is a big city with everything that comes with living in a big city, like trash, annoyed people who have to go to work, and a lot of traffic. Also, as I was telling you, it is very touristy. 2 million people live in Paris and 44 millions of people visit each year. That's 22 people per Parisian. You wouldn't go to New York and expect to have a chill, relaxing vacation and have the subway smell good and be full of happy people.
Yeah, New York isn't the, like what everyone sees is town square lit up on Christmas and all the Christmas decorations and it looks all perfect, right? And you got dirty alleyways with rats, you got homeless people, you got bad food, you got good food, you got rude people, you got nice people. It's every big city. The differences between places like France, the UK, Spain, American cities is just the cultural differences that make it slightly different. But as far as like living in a large area with lots of people, I feel like human nature takes over at that point. And at the end of the day, I think human nature is pretty similar no matter where you go.
So it's exactly the same thing in Paris. And if you don't enjoy the down-to-earth realities of being in a big city, that's totally okay. France has so many other cool places to visit, and maybe you should try going to a smaller French city or going to the countryside, which is a lot of fun. Which leads me to my next point. France is not Paris. It's actually a super diverse place. There's so much to see. You've probably already heard of Provence and Côte d'Azur, but there's so much more to explore. A few of my
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, if I ever went to France, I would, spend a couple of days in Paris, but I feel like a majority of my time would be spent outside of Paris, going to the small towns, sitting out in a field, watching the sunset in the rural areas. Like I feel like you're gonna get the dressed up fake version of France if you just stay in the city. And I wouldn't say fake version, but the perfect package that they want to sell you as a tourist. Whereas if you go out into the smaller areas, you're gonna find a lot more local things, a lot nicer views. I think, and like I said, I think this is with everywhere, no matter where you go. It doesn't matter what country you go to. I think this is just how things are.
Underrated favorites are Brittany, the Pyrenees Mountains, the Basque Country, and obviously Toulouse, where I grew up. And also, you don't even need to be in Europe to travel to France. Check out this map of overseas France. Like, this is France, and this is also France, and also this is France too. So go check out these places, and I'll see you in the next video.
That was a pretty good watch. Obviously, I like to throw my opinion in there because, well, I'm watching these and just digesting it as I think, and kind of drawing the parallels of what I think, versus what I'm being told, blah 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 blah, so on and so forth. Obviously, I think in some of these videos, when you're coming from a certain area, you're gonna have a certain bias to try to make it seem as nice as possible. But overall, I think a big city is a big city. Um, and I think you can probably expect big city things in a big city no matter where you go. But either way, I did like watching this video. Let me know what you think, or if you have any thoughts, put those in the comment section below. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to help support my channel for free. And you can go ahead and head over to Lucille's channel and check out all of her videos that she's got. Honestly, this is a channel I love to watch. Just when I'm doing the dishes or whatever, just put it on and listen. So go ahead and give her some support as well. The link to this video will be in the description below. We'll catch you guys in the next one.